Many of us navigate the complexities of stress and anxiety on a daily basis, often feeling overwhelmed and unsure of how to find joy in our lives. But what if there was a simple yet effective technique that could help us not only manage stress, but also enhance our overall happiness? That's where EFT comes into play. Join me as and our special guest as we uncover the fundamentals of EFT, discuss its incredible benefits, and explore how self awareness can shape our approach to stress management. We'll also reflect on how integrating these techniques into our daily lives can foster a culture that prioritizes joy and fulfillment. So, whether you're looking for new ways to cope with stress or seeking to create a more positive environment for yourself and those around you, this conversation is for you. So, let's get started. So, that said, I always like to start off these conversations that way because I have an extraordinary guest for you this week. And trust me, when you like get a just a glimpse of who she is and her energy, like you're gonna be blown away just like I was. So that without further ado, I would like to introduce to everybody Miss Andrea Hunt. And Andrea, as you introduce yourself, as always, it like we talked previously, it is good to see you again. And if you don't mind, just kind of share with the people like who you are and what you actually do, because I think they're going to be blown away just like I was.
Well, first of all, that was an amazing introduction. Thank you so much. It is fantastic to be here. So, my name is Andrea Hunt, and I'm an EFT empowerment coach and the founder of Living Deliberately Today, EFT empowerment coaching. I'm actually from the US. I'm from Minnesota, but I've lived in six other places, and I finally ended up here in Germany. I came from after living in Beijing for 7 years. I was in China, also Italy, and Argentina, and also the UK and Italy. If I didn't mention that already, Mexico. So, and basically, I've lived all over the world. And during the lockdowns in 2020 here in Germany, I ended up getting laid off. And I'd always been wanting to do something related to coaching. I've done a lot of personal development in my own life. And I really felt that I kind of wanted to do something with a bit more substance and more purpose. And it kind of like, of course, being laid off in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, it happened to so many people, unfortunately, but I did not take it very well. But once I kind of dusted myself off and realized that actually I had an opportunity in front of me, and that it really opened up a lot of possibilities. And plus, we were in the second lockdown, and I was like, you know what? I could either sit around, eat pizza, and like watch Netflix marathons, or I could just go ahead and see if I could get some certifications online. And so I found a program that was in the UK, fantastic. I mean, because I wouldn't have been able to even do that, under normal circumstances. And the interesting thing about it is that once I had gotten certified in coaching, I, would be having sessions and everything like that. And these, issues of stress and anxiety and, different fears that people would have about failure or whatever would come up. And I was like, oh man, I know that with EFT tapping, this funny little technique that I use, I could knock this out out of the park with this, but I had to get certified. So that brings us, up to speed. I got certified, and that's how I combine transformational coaching and EFT tapping.
I love listening to how you got to where you are right now. And I'm going to go off script just a little bit. And I hope that's okay.
Sure.
But for the person, the average person that's listening, because you did these things during the pandemic, and a lot of people during the pandemic, they experienced a lot of anxiety, some stress, frustrations. They had to live more with their family members, so that probably was part of that as well, right? How did you find the courage to just do something different?
So I've kind of learned because I think like living abroad in other countries, you don't have time really to sit and kind of wallow wallow in whatever happened. You always have to be like, okay, now what? Now what am I going to do about this? And so that was just kind of, I mean, the idea came to me. I think I saw like, like on Facebook or something like that. It was like Animus UK is where I studied, that they were going to do a little seminar for 90 minutes and just kind of see it. And I was like, and it just popped up on my screen. I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to do this coaching seminar. And that's why I was like, this is it. This is actually, and so I spent this next 6 months doing the certification, and I started doing the EFT, like real intensive course. It was pretty easy actually because I mean, if it was winter, it was lockdown, and I could do Zoom sessions. And so it was kind of like the most intense training that I've ever done, but I also got to meet people all over the world that were doing my EFT course. So there were some benefits, oddly enough. But I came out of, the pandemic with a totally new career and a sense of really feeling that like I had found my purpose. Like I really found the skill that I feel I was meant to have and share with people and be able to empower them and help them.
Yes, I love that because I know a lot of people, and it's not just limited to the pandemic. Some people get laid off just because companies are downsizing, or this company closed, or whatever that looks like. Or maybe a person could be at that place in their life where they just feel like they need to be doing something different, like they're looking for meaning in their life, and that within itself can be stressful. So I love listening to you articulate how you made that transition, and that's why I use the word courageous, because it is a courageous feat. It is something that we have to get outside your comfort zone, push the
Mhm.
limit, try something different, meet new people, all these things that people kind of experience some fear from. And I think that's a great transition into EFT, because I really want people to kind of get a gist of this. Now, EFT stands for, and I did some research. I'm telling on myself, and I told her that when we first talked. Right, I did a little research. Right, emotional freedom technique. So explain to us what that is.
So basically, it was started. It was by Roger Callahan and Gary Craig, are kind of known as the founders. Both of them were really into Eastern medicine, like acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. And so as they realized that, in terms of acupuncture points on the body, they're connected to our nervous system and our energy system. And they realized that it's similar to acupuncture, but without the needles, that if you tap, that would actually calm your nervous system and like lower cortisol and basically send your brain a signal to get it out of the fight, flight, or freeze mode. And so a lot of the things that they started in terms of researching it was, for veterans with PTSD, things that, and phobias, like things that are very, very difficult to manage and have like a lot of consequences for people in terms of, having these night terror attacks or whatever. And they decided to be like, okay, these are some people who could definitely benefit. Let's just see if it even helps. And then they realized that, after I think it was something like 6 sessions, that they had reduced a lot of the symptoms and everything like that and calmed the nervous system like of the people who were affected. And so they're like, well, I wonder what else it could work on. So that's just like a kind of a fascinating intro. So like it's kind of evolved, obviously. And now the people who I guess are more responsible to bringing it a little bit more mainstream would be like Jessica Ortner and Nick Ortner. There's like the tapping solution, the app, and they do like a tapping summit. And so now, since they have kind of brought it more mainstream, it's a little bit on TV, and you see it now on TV shows or whatever. Um, it's easier for regular people just to kind of find a YouTube video and use it when they need it. And that's actually how I found like I found it out of total like, desperation. I had never heard of it, and I was doing my master's program, and I was an older student, and so I kind of forgot how to study. I couldn't cram, for exams like I did when I was in university. I don't know if you've ever tried to do that, like, after a long time, but it's hard. And so I was just basically so panicked. I couldn't eat, sleep, couldn't do anything for like just days. And of course, I still had like 3 exams that week. That those dates were not changing, regardless of how my nervous system was behaving. And so I found it in, a Brad Yates video called Fear and Panic Right Now. And 10 minutes later, I felt a little bit better. And I was like, okay, I'm not perfect yet, but like, let's just keep going and see what happens. And after 30 minutes, like, I felt better than I had in like 2 weeks. And so, anyway, that's to say that they've used it for so many different things. And the important thing to note is like, because it's getting you out of that fight, flight, freeze response that you're having in the brain, you can actually think clearly, you can ground yourself, and you can calm yourself very quickly so that you can, I mean, because we can't take positive actions if we're frazzled and overwhelmed and panicked, So since then, it's been used in a lot of different spaces, clinical spaces, therapy spaces, and with coaches as well.
Yeah. So this is good, and thank you for sharing that, because I think hopefully as people are listening to this, they're automatically imagining like how can I use this, right? How can this work for me?
Mhm.
And I just got finished with a conversation last night about procrastination, And one of the
Yes.
things that I try to help people understand is that we believe that procrastination is centered around just being lazy, but it's
Mhm.
really like an emotional response, like an unwanted emotion that's linked to the thing that I'm delaying the process of doing. And so, as I'm listening to you say this, I'm actually hearing how you can actually use EFT to like overcome procrastination and then be more intentional about the things that you're actually. Am I in the ballpark here, or am I just
Absolutely. No, it's funny because I mean, I've done workshops specifically on procrastination because I think, like you said before, like people, I think also some coaches kind of tend to give the idea like, okay, you're procrastinating, you're lazy, you're not disciplined, what's wrong with you? And then it also makes people feel bad because a lot of times, especially ambitious people, they might really want to do something. Maybe they spent a year creating like a website, but they
yeah,
can't launch it. Or they're like, I'm going to make a YouTube video, YouTube channel. They've got all the videos edited and they can't launch it. Yeah, like, I mean, I couldn't do, any kind of, like, Instagram Live, Facebook Live. This is something that or even podcasts, like, but I did tapping on it. But, the thing is that people can't understand exactly why they're not doing it,
mhm,
or they'll get themselves busy, doing something else. Sorry.
mhm,
And, of course, that brings up a lot of negative self-talk, like, "Okay, why am I not doing this? Like, I put so much time and effort and, like, hard work and I can't do this. Like, what's wrong with me?" And then we start feeling bad about it. But the thing is that especially with procrastination, like a lot of times Brad Yates has a really great quote. He says, self sabotage is really just misguided self love. We're trying to protect ourselves from something. And so we have to be like, okay, what am I really stopping myself from? Because a lot of times there's a resistance or it's a fear. And
mhm,
sometimes it's like, so if it's a fear, usually if we really get down to it, it's like, okay, what are we really afraid of? And it's usually like most of my clients, I'm afraid that somebody's gonna laugh at me. I'm afraid, people, my colleagues are gonna think it's stupid. Who do I think I am? They're gonna criticize me, judge me. I could fail very publicly. Or what if I succeeded and couldn't handle it? And then I messed up and everybody was watching. I can't fail quietly and anonymously. And then with resistance, a lot of times, like, sometimes people make these goals for themselves, but it's not really coming from them. Like, maybe they have an expectation or something like society or a pressure to do something,
right,
but it's not really what they want, and so they haven't figured out that out yet, but they're just kind of pushing against themselves and they don't know why. But once you figure that out, then you can actually tap it away. You can go through all the, everyone's going to think I'm stupid. What if they laugh at me? What if nobody takes me seriously?
yeah,
And once you get it all out, then you can be like, okay, you know what? Maybe nobody cares. Right?
right.
Maybe nobody's watching this, like and you can kind of do the reframe so that by the time you get to positive affirmations, your brain actually believes it.
Yeah, that's so good, and thank you for saying that. Like, where were you 3 years ago when I needed you, right? And I say that jokingly, but like when I first started podcasting, I talked about it for like 3 months, and I was in this group, a group of coaches. We would meet once a month, and then during that meeting, we would talk about a particular thing. And generally, it was centered around the book that we read. And we talked about, some of the things we got from that book. And by the end of that session, we all said, okay, what we're working on and what we wanted to accomplish by the time we met again the next month.
Mhm.
Well, 2 months have passed by when I say I want to do a podcast. I'm like, okay, great. How's that podcast coming? This is the next month. Oh well, I haven't started yet. I kind of got the rough draft in my head. Okay, cool. Next month shows up. How's that podcast coming along? Well, I haven't started yet, but I'm getting there. So by the time the next month came, I got asked the question again, and one of the coaches and a good friend of mine, Natasha, she said, "How can I help you?" I'm that guy, and I'm just being transparent. I'm that guy that's too stubborn to fail. So if I put it out there and you become an accountability partner for mine, I get to the point to where it's the accountability metric for me that said, okay, you said it, now you need to do it. And
Mhm.
then by the time when she asked that question, how can I help? That next month, I had already started the podcast. It's not
Mhm.
that I employed any of the help that she offered. I wasn't rejecting it either. I told her, I said, if I need something, I will call you. But I just decided to do it. Afraid, alone, and say, you know what? It is what it is. Like, who wants to listen to a raspy voice 24-year veteran, right? But I just
We all do.
right. I appreciate that, but I find joy in doing this now. As an addition to what I always already do. So it's like just that thing. If people can understand how this can help them overcome that hurdle. If the
Mhm.
stubborn dude 3 years ago did not need a person to ask them 3 months consecutively, how's that podcast coming? How's that podcast coming? How's that podcast coming? And I could have just sit back and just tap it all away, right? I think I got it right. Wait, here, right?
Yeah,
I'm
it's like a
learning.
question mark over this.
Question mark. That's right. Yeah. If I could just tap the emotion that's preventing me from moving forward away, then I can go ahead and initiate the intentional movement of doing the thing that I'm procrastinating on doing. So I love the fact that you explained that. Now,
Mhm.
there are people, and you know it just as well as I do. If it sounds too good to be true, then it is too good to be true. So I'm
Mhm.
sure that there are some people right now, they're having a negative thought, maybe a misconception, whatever that looks like. So when it comes down to, EFT, like what, in your own words, like what misconceptions do you think people may have about stress relief techniques like EFT? And how would you address them and promote a better understanding?
So first of all, I think like I mean now I think there's something like maybe 120 different clinical studies and about different clinical trials and stuff that they have. So you can just find it online. Like some of the top people are like Dr. Peter Stapleton. Peter Stapleton is from Australia and she integrated. She was a therapist who saw like a girl in a panic or whatever, like in a class, and this guy's like, "Hold on a second, like I'll go and help her, or whatever." 10 minutes later, she like comes back. She's like cool as a cucumber. She's like, "What did you do?" And she was like EFT tapping. So like first of all, meet some of the people like Dr. Peter Stapleton. She's integrated EFT into the Australian. I think it's called the Australian like Therapy Association, their version basically of like, FDA. And then the American Psychological Association has confirmed that it's like an evidence-based technique. There's all of the studies, you just literally look up PTSD veterans EFT tapping.
Mhm.
And you can find the clinical studies yourself on like Frontiers or PubMed or whatever. The other one that it's really big on is anxiety studies with EFT and also phobias. And they also use it for sexual traumas and stuff like that. Just a side note, I do not work specifically with those kind of traumas, but just to let you know, it does work. And so I would just say like do some research out there. I think like in the past there weren't as many scientific studies and clinical trials on it. And so I think it was easier just to say like it's woo woo or something like that. But also, I mean, like there's a growing number of therapists, who also use it. And even if you, the tapping solution is at the end of February. So if anybody any year wants to watch it, I highly recommend, checking out the recordings. But there's a lot of therapists who talk about EFT and they say like, I had been working with this client for like years. I just couldn't get him, past this one point. They always had this fear. It would always come up, whatever it was. And then with tapping, it was just something that was just like over and done, and the person was able to release it. So I mean, it's it's hard to dispute the evidence. I mean, it's like anything else. You don't want to try it, don't try it. But if you're willing to take the chance, and like, I mean, I even have friends that, they don't exactly understand what it is. I have a lot of friends who are engineers, so like they're very rational
Sure.
people. And so like some of them, it's like not until something has really happened and they're just in a total panic, or I've had it happen with, old roommates or friends that I'm like, okay, please, can I give me like 20 minutes? And then, they start out, they're just like hysterically crying and like totally like, ah. And then at the end, they're just like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? Like, that's amazing. So, I mean, you can see the difference. And they're like, I'm so sorry. Like, I really didn't understand. And so I didn't even want to try it. But now, because I was desperate, I did. And I'm really glad. And so now I've shown some people the light, say.
And I'm glad you did as well because I'm not. If you didn't, I don't even know if we ever would have met. So I'm so glad you did. Let me say this for those people who are right now in disbelief. I'll say it that way. First and foremost, the fact that disbelief exists means that you believe something else, right? So I will always say what we have to get very good at doing is questioning our assumptions. There's an assumption that underlines the belief that makes you question everything that she's talking about. That's number one. Number two, she is certified. She actually there is a certification for what she actually does, right? And like she just said, go do the research. Now, I'm a big fan of that. Research it for yourself. See what is actually out there on the internet that talks about EFT tapping. And if you've never gotten into acupunctures, go do that. I am a big fan of acupunctures. I
Me
love it.
too.
And so that's how, like, when you started talking about EFT tapping, I was like, yep, I can believe that because I've done acupunctures and they work. So all of those things combined together, if you're still in disbelief, I think it's just a point to where you just decided to be in disbelief. But for those people who are actually believing and vibing with what you're saying, welcome to something that's new. Because if you've never experienced it, and I'm not gonna lie, I've practiced on myself. I may not have been good at it, but I've been practicing. Um, if you've never tried it, I will invite you to just give it a shot. Like she said, do some research and do some work on yourself with EFT tapping. I think you're going to see that it actually works.
Mhm.
I think the main reason, because I want everybody to go back and remember what we just talked about when it comes down to procrastination. Well, that procrastination is rooted in something, right? I'm always a project management degree, then human services counseling, right? So there is a root cause for everything, right? So you got to do the root cause analysis. But if you don't do the root cause analysis, you'll never understand where it stems from. Understanding where it stems from can kind of help you not to experience it again. And that's why I love talking about self awareness, because as we become more self aware, our stressors change. What
Mhm.
used to stress me 5 years ago don't stress me in 2025. What stresses me in 2025 won't stress me in 2023, at 2023, 2030. I guarantee it. So I want to kind of look at the power of self awareness in stress management, particularly as it pertains to EFT, because there's no doubt in my mind that you can share with us how EFT can bridge the gap between self awareness and managing stress.
I think first of all, a lot of times we walk around thinking that we're fine, telling everybody that we're fine, and suppressing our emotions. I mean, I think that's why a lot of people just kind of end up blowing up because we're whether it's like toxic positivity, like being like, no, 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 like it's not a big deal, like it'll all work out in the end. Blah, 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 blah. Look on the bright side, but I think we don't really acknowledge our emotions, and I think part of what makes like EFT powerful in terms of the negative round is like you are allowed to be really conscious of how you actually feel. You can be petty and you can be angry and you can be just like, can't stand that lady in my office. Like, what is her problem? And you can say all the things that we just keep inside because the more that we keep things inside, whether it's not being assertive, not having boundaries, and like enforcing things, it all bottles up. And we can't actually release negative emotions if we're not really acknowledging them. And like I said, I think, I mean, this used to be me in the past. I'm fine. Don't tell me to calm down. Like, and I think, or the person who's like really sweet and always just like, oh, it's no problem. And then just one day they like lose it. And everyone's like, what happened to Sandy? It's like, Sandy's been holding it in way too long. So, and that's what happens when we don't process our emotions. And what EFT allows you to do, like, as you're doing it, it's kind of like if you imagine like a Coca-Cola bottle, you like shake it up. And like if you just open the cap, the cap is gonna pff. But if just like let it let it out little by little, finally you can open it up and it's calm. And that's the idea. So like the negative round is always, even though I feel like super angry right now, I deeply, completely love and accept myself. And then you can go through and just be like, I want to scream. I'm super pissed off, like whatever it is that you need to say. So that after you've gotten it all out, most of the time we just need to get it out. And then you feel relieved, you feel better, you've gotten to say it. Maybe you needed to swear, whatever you needed to do that you don't normally feel like it's acceptable or allowed, and then you can get to the positive out. But yeah, the self-awareness I definitely think is a key component. The authenticity and honesty as well as a part of the self-awareness.
I am so glad you said that last part just now, that authenticity and honesty. Because I think the huge piece for me, especially when we talk about self awareness, I think we are, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying previously. setting goals, but it wasn't a goal for me. It was a goal that everybody that knows me expected me to set, like my
Mhm.
family members and things of that nature. But being authentic and honest about who you know yourself to be, I think that's a great starting point. And then, like, so I'm speaking through the lens of my life right now. Again, male, 24-year Army veteran. Men are not allowed to express emotions. Nobody really care how men feel, right? Then you join the Army where they teach you, hey, nobody cares about your emotions. Do what I tell you to do. So it's like all of those things compounded into this one person. And in essence, that person can become an actual ticking time bomb. And I
Mhm.
say that, I'm not saying it to make light of it. I'm saying it to be totally honest and transparent. You have to get to the point to where you are honest about who you see. And just another moment of transparency, one day, Andrea, I looked in the mirror and I did not like the person that was looking at me. Be honest with you. Not the physical, but just who I knew that person to be. And that was a very humbling moment for me because I
Mhm.
had this image that I kept for 24 years.
Mhm.
Be all they can be. That's kind of like that was like the Army motto years ago,
Yeah.
right? And I became the best version of who I thought the Army wanted me to be, but I never asked myself who I really am. And then
Mhm.
once you get to that point of saying, okay, strip all of that away. Let's take that away. Let's remove this. Let's peel this layer back. Now, who are you really? So now when we start talking about self-awareness, that's different because the things that stress me, I can't put it through the lens of the Army. I can't do it through the lens of being a male. I have to do it through the lens of being a human being that actually have real life feelings and emotions. I don't make things, I don't and now we're getting into the emotional intelligence, right? I don't manipulate things according to my emotions or how I feel. It's my responsibility to regulate them so I can adapt to the changes that the environment is teaching me, because
Mhm.
that's an important piece of it. Self-awareness is the first stage of emotional intelligence. If you're not self-aware, if you can't find a way to become self-aware through the lens of honest and authenticity, then you're going to struggle because you're going to keep putting on facades and putting on things that you believe people want to see. So you're going to look this way at work. You're going to look this way around your friends. You're going to look this way in a social setting. And those three people are three totally different people. And that can become a struggle. So I love the fact that EFT can actually help me manage my way from self awareness to self management, right? Because that's ultimately how we get to the social aspects of our being. So thank you for sharing that. And again, I just, want to, again, if I had known this when I was in the Army, I go like, I don't want to be the PT at this point in time. Like I could have done all that stuff.
Yeah.
But, you know, just grin and bear it and deal with it and suppress the emotion. Time bomb waiting to explode. So
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, you said so many good points there. And I just to add on to that, I think what I've noticed, especially with male clients, like a lot of times when they reach out for EFT coaching, they're usually kind of at a point where they don't really have anybody to talk to deal with these emotions. They're not always able to kind of do it with their partner. A lot of their male friends are not really able to kind of manage those conversations. And men have a lot of pressures and expectations placed onto them, and they it can be very hard for them to even talk about, like, you know what, I don't feel like I'm good enough for this job, or you know what, if I just lost my job, my family's dependent on it, I feel like a total loser, I don't know what to do. And it's just like a ticking timer, like you said. I mean, it's like all these emotions, and men especially, I feel like if they're not able to kind of process a lot of those emotions, they end up just kind of carrying around like these huge burdens. And a lot of men carry around a lot of regret or a lot of shame or a lot of guilt for things for like 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, like, even some of my clients that were like, in their 60s, just because they found me like in different workshops or something, because they were like, I don't know what, but I need to change something. And I saw an ad for your workshop, and I was just like, let's do it. And then later they did the EFT, and then one of the guys who never cries ever, he said that's the best thing. He holds it all in, and he goes, the weirdest thing happened. He wrote me this, like, he's like, I've never done any coaching, never done any therapy, never done any personal development. He goes, but after that EFT session, I went and cried, and I slept like a baby the whole rest of the night. And I felt great. Like years of just burden had just come off of my back. And I was just like, that's good. That means you needed it. And he's like, yeah, no, I feel fantastic.
yeah.
But I mean, I wish more men knew about this, because it can be really freeing and liberating to be able to kind of get rid of some of that, the emotional baggage, to put it in quotes, that we all carry around until we learn how to release it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you for saying that too. And one other thing that I know from experience that men care with them is that no one cares about how you feel. Like
Yeah.
that by itself can be debilitating to a man. So they actively will suppress how they feel for the sake of their responsibilities and all of that other great stuff. So thank you for sharing that. And again, here's why I'm so loving this conversation because as you
Mhm.
guys can see, coaching takes on different forms. Right?
Mhm.
You don't have to stay fixed in one thing. Listen, try something different. I think that's important. When we try different things, a whole different world may open up for you. And I like the fact that you shared the fact that the young man never cries. And he
Yeah.
said he did it and he slept great. Like I think
Yep. No, this guy was like 65. This is like an older man who just like was like, I've been like this my whole life. I want to do something new. So I mean, but he'd been holding it in the whole time. So
yeah, I call him young too. Because one day I'll be 65, right? So
the young 65-year-old
yeah,
guy.
the young 65-year-old man on the corner, going to go all the platinum hair. Um, I think the reason why I wanted to invite people to try something new because everybody has their own stress management techniques. Some people may meditate, some people go for walks, whatever that looks like to relieve stress. But I'm really want to get after kind of like how can they integrate it into their day-to-day lives. So what are some common barriers first you think people face when trying to incorporate something new like EFT into their daily routines?
I would say first of all that like know how you want to use it, because like don't try to tackle some big thing like limiting belief about not feeling good enough, or like some childhood trauma. Like that's not where you should start. Start small. Like for example, I always think anyway people should have a morning routine. Even if your morning routine is 15 minutes, something that you consistently do every morning, whether it's just journaling for 5 minutes, meditation or whatever, and integrating EFT into your morning routine just with like a 5-10 minute video is a really great way to first of all set up your day, because it will ground you and put you in a space of clarity, that which also makes you less reactive going into the day. Like every single day, every single morning I do EFT, because I also found that like when I throw myself into the day without grounding and preparing, I don't know, just things don't go right. Like, and so somebody was kind of hyper, and I did that for years. I would just fly out of bed, stumble downstairs, spill my coffee, just everything. And like and spiral into a horrible
So it
day,
was the visual, just not.
get splashed by the bus, like and it just I mean, one thing after the other. And I just noticed that my life would go a lot better, honestly, like when you just wake up, sit in bed, meditate for 5 minutes. Then I would get out of bed, do like some yoga stretching or whatever, and then I would do 5 to 10 minutes of tapping. I always do the same two videos, two Brad Yates videos. One, if anyone is listening, Amazing Day Quickie by Brad Yates. And it's just a very like empowering one. And the other one is Ask for No Resistance, because
Yeah,
sometimes, we can actually, attract more resistance because we're in that mindset of like, oh, that person gets me, this person gets me, like, why is he looking at me? And sometimes people are not even, they don't, they're in their own world, you know what I mean? Sometimes they're not, but we're gonna like take it on anyway, and it just kind of puts you in a nice space where you're like, okay, you know what, it's fine. That's their thing, not me. And so like the other thing is to be able to use it throughout the day when something happens, because sometimes we can start out the day totally great, and then something comes and just totally derails it. We might get a colleague says something rude to us, or our kids, or whatever it is. And being able to have that emotional resilience, excuse me, means being able to recalibrate, when we get, because I mean it's going to happen. We're not Buddhist monks, that we have no stress in our lives. Everybody has other people they have to deal with and responsibilities. But being able to take like, a video that's like maybe 10 minutes, or like the tapping solution app, for example, they have ones to be able to calm yourself down and get yourself back to zero, so you can move forward the rest of the day without spinning around in your head, or like replaying, I could have said that, like, or or whatever, just so that you can actually let it go. Because otherwise, what you're not releasing through your day, you're letting it have power over you. So you're giving, the rude guy at the bakery. It's a true story in Germany. Like somebody, rude guy at the bakery. You're spinning around, just like, why was he so rude to me? I was totally polite. Like, must be because I'm a porter. And but then the thing is that once you go through and you tap, and then you're like, okay, fine. You know what? Like, I'm not gonna let that person ruin my day. Like
Right.
it's my power, my day. So that's what I think it's very powerful. But then like in terms of doing deeper work, that the things that are related to like our belief wounds, about our sense of worth or our capabilities, those are ones that are super. I mean, it's certainly helpful to do like a 10-minute EFT video, like public one on YouTube. But because we all have different stories, we have different histories, we have different wounds that come to our, about our sense of worth or capabilities, or whether we're good enough. It's better to work with like a coach or practitioner who does EVT for those certain things.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that was great. And to go along with that amazing, story you just shared, because I still have the visual image of you running downstairs, coffee spilling, and all kind of other stuff. That sounds, but
Sweater on the doorknob, like
when you crank the car won't start. Like kick the car.
exactly. That was
But
me.
but that's what we do though, and it's not just you. Trust me, I think it's everybody. I think a lot of time, for whatever reason, we get caught in this cycle of like redlining our routines, right? So we'll create a daily routine that literally puts us from here to here to here to here with no space in between. And because
Mhm,
we have no space in between, there's no room to incorporate anything. So we look forward to those breaks at work. We look forward to the transition period between work and home and vice versa, because that gives you the opportunity to decompress. But unfortunately, you're filling your head with something on the radio that's not doing you any good. So
mhm.
you get home, then now you got another routine. You got to cook for the kids, the husband screaming, or you gotta put the trash out, you gotta cut the grass while the wife is cooking. Like all of these. So our routines are so tight. And
Yeah.
I, part of it is that we got to make room for the thing that serves us well. Because if this technique has the potential to serve you well, the only way that you will learn of its potential is to tap into it. No
Mhm.
pun intended. Right? Some of y'all got it, I guess. That's the only way that you're going to learn of the potential of what it can actually offer you in your life. And I think when we create that space, and like you said, it's only a 10-minute video, right? It's just
Mhm.
10 additional minutes. Wake up 10 minutes earlier, right? Get prepared for work, and 10 minutes before you walk out the door, have some certain mantra. And I'm gonna ask for your input here in a second, but have some type of mantra that as you're tapping away anything that you're going to drag with you out the door and carry
Mhm.
with you to work, and then work stockpiles on top of that. Then you dragging all of that back home. So now it's like a whole bunch of baggage that you're bringing off key just a little bit, because I'm curious now, because I want everybody to witness this from a seasoned professional. If I'm sitting at home, I've just heard about you on this show and I really want to get into it and I'm loving everything that you're saying. How do you get me to start? Like, what if I want to do it? How do I do it? Because I can sit there and, like, I've seen Bad Boys on Woosah, right? So I just say Woosah, like, help make me smart for the
Yeah.
next 5 minutes, if you will.
So I'll teach you like the actual recipe, but the first one is like, just let's say that you're really stressed. Let's say you're on the bus in the subway, or you're in a public place or whatever, where you can't like do the whole routine. So if you're starting to feel really stressed, like here on the collarbone, um, this is actually a really good start. And let's say you're really stressed, you're panicked, whatever. You can breathe in through your nose for a count of three, and out for the count of three. So it looks like this. So just,
Wait, hold on. I can't get your I gotta get your tag out the way. Give me 2 seconds.
oh yeah, if anybody can see, yeah, there. Of course, I have a necklace on, but if you tap on your collarbone very lightly, just using your fingertips, and you breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. And if you want to know just like how to make a simple recipe EFT tapping sequence for yourself, let's say you're sitting in the car, you can write this down. Okay. So first of all, like just sit there and like kind of take a breath and be like, all right, what emotion am I feeling? Because
Mm,
sometimes we're like, we're all over the place. We're like, am I frustrated? Am I confused? Am I angry? I'm like, whatever. Think of like the top three and be like, okay, so I'm stressed, right? So I'm feeling stressed, frustrated, and um, maybe I'm really bothered, like whatever. So you measure it from 0 to 10. You'd start on this is the karate chop point. I swear to God, that's what they call it. Where you would chop a piece of wood. So you just start tapping with your fingers and you'd breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. And you go like, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being I'm totally fine, 10 being I am like freaked out, stressed, rah. Let's say like I'm an 8. Okay. So then I'm going to start tapping and I'm going to say, like, even though I'm really stressed, I deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. Okay. And you do it again. Keep tapping. Even though I am really stressed, I deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. So now you get to get into the feelings.
mhm.
This is where I want you to just let it out. Okay. If you miss some of the points, like it's not even, don't stress about that. Sometimes people really focus too much on the points and not, but you're making a question mark. So you have like two little fingers and you're going through where between the eyebrows here. And then on the side of the eye where there's that little indentation. And then under the eye, there's like a little eye bone there.
Mhm.
Under the nose, under the chin, collarbone, under the arm, and the top of the head. And this is your chance where you just get to let it out. Okay. So you just sit there and just say whatever you want. Just make little sentences one at a time, though. So, like, I'm super stressed. Side of the eye, I am super stressed. Under the eye, I can't believe how stressed I am.
Mhm.
I'm really getting frustrated, blah, blah, blah. And then you could kind of just keep going. And then when you stop, you check in with yourself. Okay. You were at an 8 before. Did it go up? Did it go down? Just keep doing those rounds until you get down to like maybe a 2 or a 3. Depending on how stressed you are, it will take you a different amount of time. And then at the end, you can go do the positive affirmations on top.
That was good. I really like that because first I started participating, right? But then I wanted to pay attention. And I noticed a couple of things, right? So, of course, the tapping, that's the obvious thing. But it also incorporates deep breathing. And
Hmm.
I like the fact that it incorporates deep breathing because deep breathing is one of those mindfulness techniques that are taught. So it's a combination of things that's happening at the same time. But the more important part, and I'm gonna ask a question based upon this, is that I am restructuring the thoughts.
Hmm.
I noticed you did it. I'm stressed. I'm really stressed. Like, why am I so stressed? Right. Next thing you know, I'm good. I'm okay. Right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I skipped one. Right. I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm feeling good about myself right now. I'm ready
exactly.
to go back in here and conquer the day. So that's like it was a number of things happening in there. The tapping, the deep breathing, and the reframing of the situation. Because a lot of the times the things that we're stressed about has absolutely nothing to do with us. It's
Hmm.
probably something that's outside of our control anyway. So I love the fact that you incorporated all of that. Now, I want to go back because I'm the mindset coach. I want to go back to the mindset because for some people, and I'm just using this as an example, it's very difficult for them to come off of the thing that's causing them to stress.
Hmm.
So, what mindset shifting technique do you use in the midst of EFT tapping to kind of help them reframe that? Because some people struggle with reframing. They just
Yeah.
don't come up with words. They can't get off of it. Like I remember one time I had to deny a client because she wanted to focus on her ex-husband more than she wanted to focus on her progression. And she literally told me, I need to talk about him. And unfortunately, the last thing I told her, I said, I can't help you. You need to go see a therapist. So,
Hmm.
what mind shifting techniques would you actually incorporate with EFT?
So before I talked about the reframing, like I think, first of all, well, for the reframing, figure out what is the thought that's keeping you back. Because usually, for example, when you ask yourself, like, why haven't I done something? There might be a belief like, I have to be perfect or I have to be 100% ready or whatever. Um, is it a negative mindset belief? Is it a belief wound that we have? And so, like, for the reframing, what I think is important, because a lot of times people especially with affirmations for a lot of people, the reason it feels fake is because we don't believe it. Like we can sit there and be like, I'm a fantastic public speaker. And then your brain is like, you liar. Like you are not, you're terrified, you know? And so that's why, like, in being able to let it out, we're like, you know what? I'm terrified to do this like client presentation or whatever. By letting it out, you can go to reframes that sound like, instead of saying, I am not a good public speaker, for example, those I am statements that people say, instead of saying like, I don't feel comfortable with it or whatever, it's I am. This is like internalizing as part of my identity, which is problematic in itself. But if you go from I am not a public speaker, then you say, ask the person, okay, what's the opposite of that? I am a good public speaker. Do you believe that? No, of course not. Okay. So how would you get yourself from point A to point B? You start with sentences like, okay, I am open to the idea that I could be an okay public speaker. Like, I am willing to believe maybe I'm not as bad as I thought. I am choosing to believe that I could be as good as anybody else. Like those kind of phrases to get you from the reframe. And as you do that with EFT tapping, it seems more realistic, because part of the thing is we're so stubborn in whatever our belief and perception is. Like, I'm not a good public speaker. Like, my mom told me I wasn't, good in front of the class, and this is how I am, and I thought this my whole life, and that's it, and that's me, and that's me. you know and it's like, well, okay, well, if you've already made your mind up, then there's nothing that I can do about it. But if you're willing to entertain a new idea, a new belief that could be more empowering and helpful, then I can help you. And one of the things I think that was interesting about what you said is, I think we first of all also need to remember, we can't change people. We are responsible for ourselves, for our beliefs, our feelings, our behavior, and the actions that we take. We can't make people do anything. And so once you realize that, like, the Mel Robbins, like the let them, like, you are responsible for yourself. If they want to go do whatever, let them. Like, you know, and so like you can't change your husband. He can change if he wants to, and if not, and you can decide whether or not you're going to stick around if you don't like the way that he is. That's up to you. You are completely in control of that. But so first you have, like I said, take accountability for how you feel, how you want to behave, how you want to show up. And then you can be like, all right, is this helpful? Like, I always ask myself, is this hurtful or is this helpful? Is the belief that I'm not a good public speaker, is that helping me or is that hurting me? Okay, it's not helping my career. If I just say like, well, that's just me. Okay, all right, fine. But I think that's part of the authenticity and honesty thing that that we talked about before as well, because you can't reframe things unless you're honest about where you are.
This is so good. I am. I hate that the time has gotten away from us the way it have, because this is really good. Thank you so much for that, and I love that, because you don't take the reframing as this leap. It's a progressive, gradual incline, and I think it's good for a lot of people to hear that, because what what I know is that a lot of people, they try to go, well, this is my common logic trail, and then I encounter somebody like you and say, oh yeah, you can do anything you want to do. Wait, you want me
Hmm.
to have a belief system that jumps from here up to here, but that's a bridge too far. Like that could be a destiny, right? That you're trying to get to, but to try to jump from here and jump to here, that's too much for the average person to do. Uh,
Hmm.
unless you're just stubborn, right? If you're just stubborn and just say, I'm not going to fail, that's something totally different. But then, even in the midst of that, you got to also get to the point that you can believe that you're going to be successful at that level. So
Yeah.
all of these things come into place, and I love the fact that you talked about the progressive mental reframing, because I think that's important for us to understand. That happens in all facets of life. As you guys are listening to this, it doesn't matter what it is. Whether you've been through failed marriages in the past and you're looking for a relationship now, you're going to have to believe that you're the person who can exist in a great relationship before you decide to get married. Don't use the marriage as a testing bed. Believe that before you go into the marriage. Um,
Mhm.
whether you're looking for that job, believe that you're the person that can not only get that job, but do a good job once you receive it. I think this can be applied all across the board. And, I'm a big idea guy. I like thinking big, right? And so it's not just me wanting to do it. I'm wanting everybody to do it. Like, I think we need to embrace, these ideas when it comes down to things that can actually help us. So that being said, mental health, I think, is getting better, right? But mental health has, in some areas, a bad stigma. If it's said that you go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or whatever the case may be, then it's almost like this scarlet letter that you believe that people have placed on your forehead. Even though they didn't do it to you, you did it to yourself, and you're going to blame them for it, right? So, how can we shift societal perceptions of mental health and stress relief to be more positive and proactive using these amazing techniques, especially EFT as an example?
It's a really good question. I would say, like, first of all, leading by example. I mean, because you can't force society to change. You can be a good example, and if everybody sees you being the good example and the positive impact that you're having, then they would be more likely to go along with you.
Yeah,
Um, because societal changes don't happen, I think, until most of the people are on board. But how do you get to that change? You can't force change because then you get kind of a backlash on it. I mean, and so yeah, I think I worry less about what society thinks, and I just know that this is the way that makes me happy, and I know that it's a powerful way to empower people. And one of the things is like, we have so many challenges that are going to come up in our lives. Like so many obstacles that are that exist anyway. Why should our mindset be the thing that drags us down?
sure.
You know what I mean? Like, and of course that's easier said than done. I mean, it's a lot of work to be able to change your mindset. And like, I mean, that's why we have like imposter syndrome. We have famous people who are super successful. I think like Shakira was like, "Oh, I have imposter syndrome." And you're like, "What?" Like,
Phenomenal. Are you kidding me?
exactly. Like, Jesus, Shakira has that. And like, I mean, but I mean, so I think it's important to understand that like we all do the best we can with the emotional tools that we have,
Yes.
but don't let yourself be your biggest obstacle. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I think part of that is like the authenticity, the accountability, being like, I have control over me. And once you kind of make that shift also from like blame to being like, okay, this is what happened. Okay, how do I take responsibility and do something about this? And you know, what am I missing to go from here to here? And that's what I think I like about coaching is there's like a plan. Okay, where are you? Okay, do you like it? No? Okay, cool. Where do you want to be? Here. All right. What do we need to do to get you there?
Yeah.
And I think that's what I really appreciate. That like, I mean, I have had therapy in the past, but I didn't feel that there was that finality. It was very valuable during times in my life where I really needed it. But the coaching aspect is more like I know where the finish line is for whatever I'm trying to achieve. Like I know that I want to be somebody who goes on podcats, for example. Like, all right, I'm going to do it. What do I need to overcome? Okay, fear of judgment, fear of people from high school seeing me, like whatever. Yeah, that was this is me. I mean, and now I think I don't know how many dozens of podcasts that I've done now, and I love it. I mean, but that was a tapping thing for me. I am not a naturally like, let's put myself on, you know, on podcasts and all that stuff. So it's a
Uh,
progression.
yeah, I love that. I definitely like the be the change that you want to see in the world, right? The example. If you want to get traction in the thing, then you must first embody the thing that you want people to get traction in. I'm also in conjunction with, and I'm just going to expound on just that piece. If I believe it, then how do I get my household to do it? Right? If my household does it, how do my children get their friends to do it? How does my spouse get her friends to do it? How do I get my friends to do it? How do we, teach it to the community to such a degree that we help them to overcome some of the stresses that they're dealing with? And I think that helps. I think that helps. It's kind of like the notion of each one teach one, right? If we just
Absolutely.
incorporate that, and then next thing you know, we have our own little EFT tapping coalitions. At work, we're in the corner, everybody's tapping. Like, what are y'all guys doing over there? Come over here, let's show you, right? And I think that's
Yes.
it. Yeah, that's really it. Because let's be honest, like there are two things that happen when people see things that they're not accustomed to. They shy away from it because they don't understand it, or they become curious because they want to learn it.
Mhm.
People who become curious, let them be curious to such a degree that you teach it. right? Which is why we have the amazing Andrea Hunt with us today, because when she told me about EFT, like, I'm on board. Let's talk about it. And I think it's an awesome concept that we don't talk enough about. And then, of course, you got experts like her who can teach you how to incorporate it during your everyday, life. I don't want to say struggles, during your everyday life, but then you have experts like her who actually help you with the deeper seated emotions and things of that nature, which is important because a lot of times what we want to do, we want to take the self help guide and we want to go build a house. No, no, don't take a self-help guy and go try to build a house. That's not how it works. You go get a professional to build the house. You take the self-help guy to maintain the house. So, I kind of went on a little rampage about that, but I think that's important because it doesn't make sense, and I'm an advocate of this. It doesn't make sense for us to know something that we know will help if we're not sharing it with other people, hoping, like, I can't make you do it, hoping that you accept it. And if five people walk away from this conversation tapping, great. That's five more people that will reach. And I think
Mhm.
if we maintain that posture, don't look for, the high percentages in every conversation. Appreciate the percentages that come from the conversations. If we can change that posture, reframe that thinking today, right? Be more appreciative than judgmental, then I think that can actually help to change things. Now, I mentioned the workplace environment. I promise you this is the last question I'm gonna ask you. Um, we mentioned the workplace environment. I think it's probably one of the most needed areas. Like, I want to see you go into every job and teach all of the upper managements about, tapping so that you can get access to their employees. So
Absolutely.
I'm all about that. Creating initiatives and programs and things of that nature, whether it's in workplaces or schools. Um, do you think we could implement these things in the workplaces, in the schools, organizations, things like that, to promote stress relief through EFT tapping?
Absolutely. I mean, group programs are always really good for like general issues like stress or whatever. Like, let's say you have a big, I don't know, a deadline or something like that that you guys that have to meet as a team. Those are always super helpful, and especially I think now workplace wellness programs are more of a thing than they were. I don't know, 5 or 10 years ago. It's more normal, but I think where the real change happens is on an individual level, like when you can take, for example, like I don't know, like an HR place would buy like 20 sessions or something, and then employees can use them as they need it because we all in a workplace environment kind of have a little bit of a mask on, and we don't want to go talking about our imposter syndrome and like the fight we had with our husband or wife or something like that, and like that our kids are messing up in school and we're upset about it. And so in the workplace, it's important to have the group dynamic for things that everybody can relate to, but give people the opportunity to do the one-on-one sessions where they can really work through their own stuff, whether it's emotional health or burnout prevention, or it's like trying to have better performance at work, but what do they need to do to get there,
Yeah,
things like that. But I mean, with organizations, I mean, like that's what I've been trying to do a lot more of this year, like reach out to certain places, for example, even like workplace bullying or,
mhm,
different universities, because I don't know, there's so much stress and anxiety these days, and people really need a tool.
yeah,
And if it's something easy that especially in a group format that like somebody could be like, all right, how are you feeling today? We've got a de-stress EFT session and and we're all gonna do it and it's gonna
right.
be great.
And you know what? And here's why I asked that, because just being transparent, the younger version of me, especially the one that was in the army, would not have known professional development if I wasn't exposed to it in an army setting. But
Mm.
professional development and personal development go hand in hand. So the
Mhm,
better
absolutely.
right. So the better you become on a professional level, you start bringing those things into your personal life. And the better you become on a personal level, you start taking those things in your professional life. So they go hand in hand. So if we can incorporate it into the workplace, into the schools, things of that nature, as a method to manage stress, especially before you go into a big meeting with senior vice president, such and such.
Totally.
Absolutely. you might find that performances during the meeting may be better. People are more relaxed, people are more confident in what they're doing and things of that nature. And then they find out that it actually works. Then they take it home and they start doing that at home. They start teaching their spouse, they start teaching their children and things of that nature. So that's one of the reasons why I'm an advocate of workplace initiatives, school initiatives, things of that nature. Because if it's all about development, whether it's personal or professional, they work hand in hand, and it makes a better person, a more holistically better. Um, so, like I said, that was going to be my last question. But I did have another question. I can't let you go just that fast. So we're at an hour, and I don't want to take up your valuable
And I'm
time.
loving every minute of it. Don't worry.
I am loving it as well. Like, I hate that we're already at an hour. But where can we find Andrea Hunt? How can people get in touch with you? Like all of those great and wonderful things.
So first of all, my website is www.dreahunt.com. So it's DREAHUNT, not my whole name. And then if they just Google Andrea Hunt Living Deliberately Today, you can find my Instagram, my TikTok, my YouTube. I am everywhere. I've got blog articles that come out every week. I mean, for every different kind of topics, because a lot of times people ask me like, what can I use EFT for? So I have some on public speaking, I have some on like anger management. That's a really totally different one. Or boundaries and being assertive, because if you grew up in an environment where you family didn't have boundaries, guess what, you're probably not going to either.
Right.
Had to learn them. So, and then you might feel bad about it for a while or be afraid of conflict and stuff. So all those kinds of things, and so different topics. And I do workshops online also, like if people especially sometimes feel just more comfortable being at their home, going to an online workshop or webinar where they can learn about this stuff. I do workshops on belief wounding and empowerment and confidence, especially applying the technique that we just talked about before with the reframing. So starting with your limiting belief and kind of transitioning it into something more positive. And I have some ebooks that are free that you can download just to learn a little bit more about EFT, how it works, and also about me, which I will give you Dwayne so that you can give them to him. And 10% off for if you use hashtag Dwayne, and you can get 10% off my programs.
Did y'all catch that? What can we change it from Dwayne to the mindset coach? I kind of
Okay.
like
Hashtag mindset coach. Okay.
hashtag the mindset coach. So make sure y'all get the 10% by putting in hashtag the mindset coach. Listen, I can't even begin to thank you. This has been such a phenomenal conversation. I knew it was going to be good, like I told you when we first talked, but I am just blown away at how good it really was. Like it exceeded expectations. So
Oh,
thank you again for just being you. Thank you for making time because you're in Germany, right?
yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
I am.
So,
No, but
so
likewise, thank you so much for allowing me to be here and talk to you and to your audience. I really appreciate it.
yeah, yeah, it was good to have you. So listen, again, the door's open. Anytime you want to come back, by all means, let us know. And you're always welcome. Like mi casa, su casa. That's the limitations of my foreign language. I'm sorry, don't judge me. Listen, on behalf of myself, Dwayne Dwyer, the mindset coach, and Andrea, we want to thank you guys for joining us. We pray that this was an inspiring conversation, and you would actually tap in. All of her stuff will be in the show notes, so make sure that you go to the show notes, check them out. Get into EFT tapping. I think you will find that it'll be beneficial, and then reach out to Andrea so she can give you some more detailed instructions on EFT tapping. So that being said, you guys have a phenomenal day and let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody.